The small cargo ship drifted silently through the cold emptiness of space. Its engines had failed 3 days ago. The life support systems were running on emergency power. Inside the damaged vessel, a young woman named Sarah sat alone in the darkness, watching her oxygen meter slowly count down toward zero. Sarah was 26 years old. She worked as a transport pilot for a small mining company. Her job was simple. She carried supplies between asteroid mining stations in the outer reaches of human-controlled space. It was not exciting work, but it paid well enough. She had been saving money to buy her own ship someday. But now none of that mattered. Her ship had been hit by debris from an old satellite. The damage had destroyed her main engine and communications array. She had sent out a distress signal before the radio died, but she was far from any human stations. The chances of rescue were almost zero. Sarah looked at her oxygen meter again. She had maybe 18 hours left. After that, she would simply fall asleep and never wake up. It was a peaceful way to die, she supposed, better than some alternatives. She thought about her family back on Earth. Her mother would be worried when she did not call this week. Her younger brother was getting married next month. She had bought a gift for him already. It was sitting in her small apartment on Station 12, waiting for her to pick it up. Sarah closed her eyes and tried not to cry. Crying used oxygen. She needed to conserve every breath. Far away from Sarah's drifting ship, in a completely different part of the galaxy, the people went about their daily lives. They were an ancient race. They had traveled the stars for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. Their civilization was built on principles of peace, knowledge, and harmony with all living things. They looked nothing like humans. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They had 4 arms and moved with a gentle grace that humans often found beautiful. Their voices were soft and musical, and they communicated through a combination of spoken words and subtle color changes in their skin. For the past several centuries, they had been fighting a war. Their enemy was a race called the Empire. They were brutal conquerors who believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. They had attacked them without warning or reason, destroying dozens of peaceful worlds and killing billions of innocent people. They were not warriors by nature. They believed in solving problems through discussion and understanding, but they did not want to talk. They only wanted to destroy, so they had been forced to learn how to fight. It had not gone well. The fleet was small and poorly equipped for war. Their ships were designed for exploration and science, not battle. They, on the other hand, had been building warships for generations. Their fleet was massive and powerful. Slowly, over the years, they had been pushed back. They had lost world after world. Their population, which once numbered in the trillions, had been reduced to a few hundred billion. They were losing the war, and everyone knew it. Elder stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Starlight Dream. She was old, even by standards. She had seen over 400 years of life. Her skin had faded from bright blue to a softer shade of gray, and she moved more slowly than she once did. But her mind was still sharp, and her heart was still full of hope. The Starlight Dream was far from space, searching for something, anything, a new weapon, a new ally, a new hope. The War Council had sent out dozens of ships in all directions looking for help. Most had found nothing. Some had never returned. "Elder," said the young navigation officer, "I am detecting an unusual signal." Turn to look at the display screen. What kind of signal? It appears to be a distress call. The language is unknown. The signal is very weak. Felt a small spark of curiosity. In all her years of exploration, she had encountered many strange things, but an unknown language was rare. Most of the galaxy had been mapped by the long ago. "Can you locate the source?" Worked at his controls for a moment. "Yes, Elder. It is coming from a small vessel approximately 2 light cycles from our current position. The vessel appears to be damaged and without power." Thought carefully. They were far from home in unknown space. It could be a trap. They were known to use distress signals to lure ships into ambushes. But the signal was in an unknown language. They did not have the creativity to invent new languages, and the vessel was small. Even if it was a trap, the Starlight Dream could handle it. Set a course, decided, we will investigate. The Starlight Dream changed direction and began moving toward the signal. As they got closer, was able to get a better reading on the mysterious vessel. It is very small, he reported. Only room for 1 or 2 individuals. The design is completely unfamiliar. It does not match any known species in our database. Leaned forward with interest. A new species out here. It seems so, Elder. When they finally reached the drifting ship, had it displayed on the main screen. It was indeed small, barely larger than one of their escape pods. The hull was battered and scorched. One section had been torn open, exposing the internal structure to space. Life signs? Asked. The medical officer checked her instruments. 1. Faint but present. The creature is still alive but not for much longer. Oxygen levels inside the vessel are critically low. Did not hesitate. Bring it aboard immediately. Elder, said one of the security officers carefully. We do not know what this creature is. It could be dangerous. It could be, agreed. But it is also dying, and we do not let beings die when we have the power to save them. That is not the way. The crew moved quickly. A rescue team was assembled. They used a gravity beam to carefully bring the small vessel into the cargo bay. Then they cut through the damaged hull and extracted the creature inside. Sarah had been drifting in and out of consciousness for hours. The oxygen was so low now that every breath felt like trying to breathe through a wet cloth. She had made peace with her death. She had thought her last thoughts and said her last prayers. So when she suddenly felt hands lifting her, she thought she was already dead. She thought she was being carried by angels. The hands were gentle and careful. The air around her was sweet and fresh. She took a deep breath without thinking, and it was like drinking cold water after days in a desert. She opened her eyes. The face looking down at her was not human. It was pale blue, with huge dark eyes that seemed to hold all the sadness and wisdom of the universe. It had 4 arms, and each one was cradling her like a baby. Sarah screamed. The creature did not drop her. It did not hurt her. It simply made a soft, soothing sound and continued carrying her gently through a bright corridor. Sarah's scream faded into confused silence. She was not dead, she was somewhere else, somewhere very strange. They took her to a medical bay. The room was full of equipment she did not recognize. The beings around her moved with calm efficiency, examining her, checking her vital signs, doing things to her body that she did not understand but that did not hurt. Sarah lay on the soft bed and tried to make sense of what was happening. Aliens. She was surrounded by aliens. Real, actual aliens. Humanity had never encountered intelligent alien life before. There had been speculation, of course. Scientists had argued about it for centuries, but no one had ever found proof. Until now. Sarah, a simple cargo pilot from Earth, had just become the first human to make contact with an alien species. The thought made her laugh. Then the laugh turned into tears. She was alive. Against all odds, she was alive. One of the aliens approached her bed. This one seemed older than the others. Its skin was more gray than blue, and it moved with a slow, dignified grace. When it spoke, the voice was like music. "Do not be afraid," it said. Sarah's eyes went wide. "You can speak my language." Your communication device transmitted recordings of your voice. Our systems have been analyzing your language since we detected your signal. We have learned enough to communicate simple ideas. Sarah sat up slowly. Her body felt weak, but she was no longer dizzy. Whatever these creatures had done to her, it had helped. "You saved me," she said. The old alien made a gesture that Sarah would later learn meant acknowledgement. "You were dying. We could not allow that." Why, you don't know me. You don't know anything about humans. The alien tilted its head as if the question confused it. You were dying, it repeated. That is reason enough. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes again. She had expected death. Instead, she had found kindness. Over the next several days, Sarah learned about her rescuers. They called themselves the Elder, the old one who had first spoken to her, explained their history, their culture, and their current situation. They were dying, not individually but as a species. The Empire was destroying them planet by planet, year by year. Soon, there would be nothing left. Sarah listened to the stories with growing horror. They sounded like monsters. They killed without mercy and destroyed without reason. They had turned peaceful worlds into wastelands and peaceful people into refugees. Is there nothing you can do? Sarah asked. Skin shifted to a dark shade of blue that Sarah had learned meant sadness. We fight. We resist, but we are not warriors. We never wanted to be. They have been preparing for war for generations. We have been preparing for peace. What about allies, other species who could help? We have sought allies across the galaxy. Most species are too afraid of them to join us. Others are too far away to offer meaningful assistance. We are alone. Sarah thought about this for a long time. She thought about her own people back home. Humanity was not a large civilization compared to these galactic empires. Earth and its few dozen colony worlds seemed tiny against the vastness of space. But humans had something that they did not. Humans had been fighting wars for their entire history. They had invented weapons and tactics and strategies over thousands of years of bloody conflict. They had fought each other until they finally learned to live together. And then they had turned their energy outward, toward the stars. What if I could bring help? Sarah asked one evening. Looked at her with those deep, sad eyes. Your people are far away. Even if they wanted to help, it would take too long for them to arrive. They are attacking our final stronghold. In a few months, everything will be over. Maybe not, Sarah said. Humans are fast when we need to be, and we really don't like seeing innocent people get hurt. Made the gesture of acknowledgement again, but her skin color suggested she did not truly believe. They repaired Sarah's ship as best they could. They improved it, actually. When they were done, it was faster and more reliable than it had ever been. They gave her supplies and star charts and everything she would need to find her way home. On the day she left, Elder came to say goodbye. Thank you, Sarah said, for everything. You saved my life. You do not need to thank us. Life is precious. Every life is precious. Sarah took the old alien's hand. It was cool and smooth against her skin. I'm going to help you, she said. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to find a way. Smiled. It was a strange expression on her alien face, but Sarah could tell it was genuine. You are kind, but please do not make promises you cannot keep. Return to your people. Live your life. That is enough. Sarah squeezed her hand. It's not enough for me. She climbed into her ship and began the long journey home. It took Sarah 3 weeks to reach human space. When she finally arrived at Station 12, she was greeted by a crowd of people. Her distress signal had been received before her communications failed. She had been listed as missing, presumed dead. Her family had already started mourning. Her mother cried when she saw her. Her brother hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. Her friends celebrated her miraculous survival. But Sarah did not have time for celebrations. She had a mission. She went straight to the authorities. She told them everything. About the war that was destroying an entire civilization while humanity sat unaware in their little corner of the galaxy. At first, no one believed her. They thought she had suffered brain damage from oxygen deprivation. They thought she had hallucinated the entire experience. They sent her to doctors and psychologists and specialists who asked her the same questions over and over. But Sarah had proof. She had the star charts they had given her. She had recordings from her ship's internal cameras showing the alien vessel and its crew. She had samples of the food they had given her, the medicines they had used to heal her. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity was not alone in the universe. The news spread like wildfire. Within days, every human in the galaxy knew the story of Sarah and the people reacted in different ways. Some were excited, some were afraid. Some demanded that humanity stay out of alien affairs. Others wanted to help. Sarah appeared on news programs and gave interviews and answered the same questions hundreds of times. She described the with warmth and affection. She described the with horror and disgust. She told the story of Elder, who had risked her own ship to save a stranger from a species she had never encountered. "They didn't have to save me," Sarah said in one interview. "They didn't know anything about humans. For all they knew, I could have been dangerous. But they saved me anyway because that's who they are. They believe that every life is precious." The interviewer leaned forward. "And what do you think humanity should do?" Sarah looked directly into the camera. "I think we should show them what humans believe." The debate raged for weeks. Politicians argued. Military leaders strategized. Ordinary citizens signed petitions and organized protests and demanded action. The question of what to do about them became the most important issue in human history. Some said humanity should stay neutral. They were powerful and dangerous. Getting involved in an alien war could bring destruction to Earth and all the human colonies. It was too risky. Others said humanity could not stand by and watch an entire civilization be destroyed. They had shown kindness to a human in need. They deserved kindness in return. In the end, it was Sarah's words that tipped the balance. "One person," she said in a speech to the Terran assembly. "They saved one person, one poor human drifting alone in space. They didn't ask for payment. They didn't ask for thanks. They saved me because it was the right thing to do." She paused and looked around at the assembled leaders of humanity. Now they're dying. Billions of innocent people are being slaughtered by monsters, and they're dying because they believe in peace. They're dying because they never wanted to learn how to wage war. Her voice grew stronger. "Humans know how to wage war. We've been doing it since we climbed down from the trees. We're really, really good at it. And now, for the first time in our history, we have a chance to use that skill for something good, for something noble." She raised her fist. "They saved one poor human. I say we send them the entire Terran fleet." The chamber exploded with cheers. The decision was made. Humanity would go to war. Admiral Stone had served in the Terran Navy for 40 years. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belts. He had led rescue missions during the Great Colony Crisis. He had seen humanity at its best and worst. But he had never seen anything like this. The Terran fleet was gathering at the edge of human space. Ships of every size and type were arriving from every corner of human civilization. Battleships and cruisers and destroyers and carriers and frigates. Supply ships and medical ships and troop transports and engineering vessels. Everything humanity had. 3,000 warships. 12 million soldiers, pilots, engineers, and crew. The largest military force ever assembled in human history. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Terran carrier Thunder of Earth, and watched the fleet come together. Lights flickered across the darkness of space as ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel. Each one took its position in the formation with perfect precision. His communications officer turned to him. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the assembly." Stone nodded. "Put it through." The face of Sarah appeared on the main screen. She was wearing a simple civilian uniform, but she carried herself with a confidence that made her seem much taller than she actually was. "Admiral Stone," she said, "thank you for taking my call." "Miss, what can I do for you?" Sarah's expression was serious. "I wanted to thank you for agreeing to lead this mission. I know not everyone was happy with the decision." Stone allowed himself a small smile. There are always people who disagree with any decision. That's what makes us human. But the assembly voted and the decision was made. We're going to help the... I want to come with you, Sarah said. Stone raised an eyebrow. That's not possible. This is a military operation. Civilians are not permitted on combat vessels. I know, but they know me. They trust me. If I'm there when the fleet arrives, it will help them understand that we come as friends. Stone considered this. It was a reasonable argument. First contact situations were always delicate. Having a familiar face could make a big difference. I'll arrange for you to travel on one of the diplomatic vessels, he said finally. You'll stay well back from any combat zones. Is that understood? Sarah smiled. Understood, Admiral, thank you. The fleet departed 3 days later. It was the furthest any human force had ever traveled. The journey would take 6 weeks, even at maximum speed. During that time, Admiral Stone studied everything humanity knew about the. He read Sarah's reports over and over. He analyzed the star charts she had brought back. He planned and prepared for every possible scenario. They were a serious threat. According to the information they had provided, the fleet numbered over 10,000 vessels. Their technology was advanced and deadly. They had been fighting wars for centuries. But Stone was not worried. Humanity had been fighting wars for even longer, and humans had something that most other species did not. They had an almost unlimited capacity for creative violence. Throughout history, humans had invented countless ways to kill each other. Swords and spears and arrows and guns and bombs and missiles and nuclear weapons and biological agents and 1,000 other horrible things. Each generation found new and more efficient methods of destruction. It was not something to be proud of, Stone knew, but it was something to be used when necessary, and right now it was necessary. While the fleet traveled through the void between stars, Elder sat in the command center of the final stronghold. The planet was called the original of her people. It was the last major population center still under control. 12 billion people lived on. They were all that remained of a civilization that had once spread across 1,000 worlds. The fleet was coming. Scouts had detected them 2 weeks ago, moving slowly through the outer regions of the system. They would arrive in less than a month. The defense force was ready to fight. They had gathered every ship they still had, about 400 vessels in total. It was a pathetic force compared to the enemy. They were bringing at least 3,000 warships. Everyone knew what would happen. They would fight bravely. They would destroy some of the enemy, but in the end they would be overwhelmed, would fall. The civilization would cease to exist. Accepted this with the calm acceptance that came from long experience. She had lived a good life. She had seen wonders and done good deeds. She had even saved a strange creature from a dying ship in deep space. She thought about Sarah often. The young human had been so full of life and hope. She had promised to find help for the... hoped she had made it home safely. She hoped the human was living happily with her family, far from the war and death that was about to consume everything had ever known. Elder, said a young officer, interrupting her thoughts, we're detecting something strange. Rose from her seat, what is it? Unknown vessels. They're emerging from faster than light travel at the edge of the system, many of them. Felt her hearts begin to beat faster. Reinforcements. No, Elder, the ship designs don't match anything in our database. They're completely unknown. Moved to the sensor display. What she saw made her skin flash through a dozen colors in rapid succession. Ships were appearing out of nowhere, dozens of them, then hundreds, then thousands. How many? She whispered. The officer's voice trembled. Over 3,000, Elder, and more are still arriving. 3,000 ships. That was more than they had possessed at the height of their power. That was more than the entire invasion fleet. Can you identify their origin? The officer worked at his console. Then his skin went pale. "Elder, they're transmitting a message, a visual message in our language." "Show me." The screen flickered and a face appeared. It was a human face, but not Sarah. This was a male human, older, with gray hair and sharp eyes and a uniform covered in medals. "People of," the human said, "my name is Admiral Stone of the Terran Navy. We have come to help you." His legs went weak. She had to grab the edge of the console to keep from falling. The Admiral continued, "Several months ago, one of your ships rescued a human citizen from certain death. Her name is Sarah. When she returned home, she told us what you did for her. She told us about your kindness and your mercy. She told us about the war you are fighting and the enemy you face." Stone's expression hardened. "Humanity does not forget kindness. You saved one of our own without asking for anything in return. Now we are here to return the favor." He leaned forward slightly. "The Terran fleet is at your disposal. Point us at your enemies and we will destroy them." The message ended. The command center was silent. Every present was staring at the screen with expressions of complete shock. Finally found her voice. "Open a channel to the human fleet. I need to speak with this admiral." The connection was established quickly. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the screen again, this time live. "Elder," he said, nodding respectfully. "Sarah told me about you. It's an honor to meet you." Struggled to find words. "Admiral Stone, this cannot be real. You brought 3,000 warships for us. We are strangers to you." Stone smiled. It was a grim smile, the smile of a man who knew what was coming. "You're not strangers. You're the people who saved Sarah. That makes you family." Skin flushed with colors that had no name in human language. It was a mixture of gratitude and wonder and hope and disbelief, and 100 other emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. "The fleet," she managed to say. "They number at least 3,000 as well. This will be a terrible battle. Many of your people will die." Stone's smile faded. "Yes, many will die, but that's what we came here to do. Humans don't run from a fight, Elder, especially not when we're fighting for people who deserve our help." In the weeks that followed, the human fleet integrated with the defense force. It was a difficult process. The two species had completely different military traditions, different technologies, different ways of thinking about war. But they made it work. They provided intelligence about their tactics, their weaknesses. The humans provided raw combat power and experience. Together, they formed a combined force that was greater than either could have been alone. Sarah served as a bridge between the two species. She spent her days moving between human and ships, translating not just languages but cultures. She helped them understand human directness. She helped the humans understand sensitivity. She also spent long hours with Elder. The old had become like a grandmother to her. They talked about philosophy and history and the meaning of life. They talked about hope and fear and what it meant to face the end of everything. "You really came back," said one evening. "I told you not to make promises you couldn't keep, but you kept it anyway." Sarah smiled. "I told you I would. Humans are stubborn like that. Your people are very strange. You fight with such ferocity, but you also show such kindness. I do not understand how both can exist in the same beings." "Neither do we sometimes, but we're learning." Reached out and touched Sarah's face with one gentle hand. "You have given us hope, child. Whatever happens in the battle to come, we will never forget that." They arrived on a cold morning. Their fleet emerged from faster than light travel like a swarm of angry insects, thousands of dark shapes spreading across the sky. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. The commander, a brutal warlord named, surveyed the enemy fleet with contempt. They had gathered their pathetic defenses again, a few hundred ships waiting to be destroyed. Then his sensors showed him the truth. There were not a few hundred ships waiting for him. There were over 3,000, and more than 2/3 of them were designs he had never seen before. "What is this?" he snarled. His officers scrambled to analyze the unknown vessels. The answer came quickly, and it was not good. "New species, Commander. We have no record of them in our database. Their ships are heavily armed, very heavily armed. Some of those weapons, we have never seen anything like them." Bared his teeth in what passed for a smile. "New species, new prey. We will destroy them and add their worlds to the Empire." He ordered his fleet to advance. They had conquered dozens of civilizations. They had never lost a major battle. They would not lose this one. Admiral Stone watched the enemy approach on his tactical display. The ships were ugly things, covered in spikes and weapons, designed to intimidate as much as to destroy. They moved in loose formations, spreading out to surround their target. Stone had seen that tactic before. Many Earth armies had used it throughout history. It was effective against enemies who fought defensively. But humans did not fight defensively. "All ships," Stone said calmly, "execute attack pattern Alpha, target their center formation." 3,000 human warships surged forward. They did not spread out. They did not try to match the enemy's surrounding maneuver. Instead, they formed a tight wedge and drove straight toward the heart of the fleet. They were surprised. No one had ever charged directly at them before. Every species they had fought had tried to defend, to hold the line, to protect their precious planets. This enemy was attacking. It threw off their entire strategy. By the time they adjusted, the human fleet was already among them. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships fought with a fury that shocked both enemies and allies. They moved fast, hit hard, and showed no fear of death. Rounds tore through hulls. Missiles exploded against enemy shields. Laser batteries carved burning lines across the darkness. Wherever the humans went, destruction followed. They fought alongside their new allies, but they were almost spectators to the violence. They had never seen anything like it. The humans attacked with a savage joy that was both terrifying and magnificent. Admiral Stone commanded from the center of the formation. He issued orders with cold precision, directing ships to where they were needed most, exploiting every weakness in the enemy formation. He had fought many battles in his career, but this one was special. This was not about territory or resources or politics. This was about doing the right thing. Watched his fleet being torn apart and felt something he had never felt before: fear. The unknown species was destroying everything. His best ships were being reduced to wreckage. His most experienced commanders were dying. The battle that should have been an easy victory was becoming a disaster. "Retreat," he ordered finally. "All ships retreat." The fleet turned and ran. They fled through space with the humans pursuing them, destroying stragglers, showing no mercy. By the time the last ship escaped into faster-than-light travel, they had lost over half their fleet. The battle was over. They had won. Elder stood on the observation deck of the orbital station and watched the human ships return from their pursuit. They moved in formation, battered but victorious. Fires burned on some of the hulls. Others showed gaping wounds where weapons had struck. The humans had paid a heavy price for their victory. Nearly 300 of their ships had been destroyed. Thousands of human lives had been lost in a battle that was not their own. Sarah came to stand beside her. The young human was crying. Tears streamed down her face as she watched the fleet limp home. "So many died," Sarah whispered, "so many." Put an arm around her. "Yes, and they will be remembered forever. Your people have given us the greatest gift any species has ever given another. You have given us a future." The victory had changed everything. Word spread across the galaxy that they were no longer alone, that a strange new species called humanity had appeared from nowhere and devastated the war machine. Other civilizations took notice. Species that had been too afraid to oppose began to reconsider. Ambassadors were sent. Alliances were discussed. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. The Empire retreated to its core worlds to rebuild. They would not attack the again for a long time. The memory of human fury was too fresh in their minds. In the months after the battle, humans worked together to rebuild what the war had destroyed. Human engineers helped repair infrastructure. Scientists shared their advanced knowledge with human researchers. A friendship was forming between the two species that would last for generations. Admiral Stone was awarded the highest honors both humanity and the could give. He accepted them with quiet dignity, then returned to his fleet to continue his work. There was still much to do. Sarah became something of a celebrity in both civilizations. She was invited to diplomatic functions and academic conferences and cultural events. She was asked to speak about her experiences over and over again. But she found her true purpose in a different role. She became the first human ambassador to the. Her job was to help the two species understand each other, to build bridges between their cultures, to ensure that the friendship forged in war would survive in peace. Elder retired from public life after the war. She had done enough, she said. It was time for younger generations to shape the future, but she stayed in contact with Sarah. They wrote letters to each other, sharing stories and wisdom across the vast distance of space. Years later, a monument was built on. It stood in the capital city, in a park where families came to play and rest and enjoy the sunshine. The monument showed two figures, one and one human, standing side by side with hands clasped together. The inscription read, "In memory of those who gave their lives at the battle of human and fighting as one. They showed us that kindness is never wasted and that hope can come from the most unexpected places." Sarah visited the monument every year on the anniversary of the battle. She would stand before it and remember the friends she had lost, both human and. She would remember the fear and the hope and the incredible bravery she had witnessed. And she would remember Elder's words, spoken so long ago on a small exploration ship far from home. "You were dying. We could not allow that." Such a simple thing, such a small act of kindness. A single hand reached out to save a stranger. And in return, humanity had sent 3,000 warships and 12 million souls to fight and die for people they had never met. That was what humans did. That was who humans were. They remembered kindness. They repaid it 1,000-fold, and they never, ever abandoned those who had shown them mercy. They had saved one poor human. So humanity sent them the entire Terran fleet. It was, in the end, a very human thing to do. The galaxy learned an important lesson in those days. It learned that humanity was not to be underestimated. They were strange creatures, full of contradictions. They could be cruel and petty and selfish, but they could also be brave and generous and loyal beyond measure. Cross them and they would destroy you. Help them and they would move heaven and earth to help you in return. It was a lesson they had learned through fire and blood. It was a lesson they had learned through hope and salvation. And it was a lesson that would echo through the galaxy for thousands of years to come. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had arrived with a message that no one would ever forget. We remember our friends. We protect those who protect us. And if you save one of ours, we will bring everything we have to save all of yours. That was the human way. That was the human promise. And humans always kept their promises. Sarah lived to be 97 years old. She saw the galaxy transformed by the alliance between humanity and the. She saw new friendships form between species that had been enemies for. She saw peace spread across regions of space that had known only war. On her deathbed, surrounded by family and friends both human and, she smiled and said her final words. "Worth it," she whispered. "It was all worth it." Then she closed her eyes and slept, and in her dreams she was floating through the darkness of space again, alone and afraid, until gentle hands lifted her and carried her home.